Hi, Edmund. Thanks very much for allowing us this interview. Could you start by introducing yourself briefly?
Hi everyone, my name is Edmund. I'm a sales consultant and auctioneer in LLC Real Estate. I'm formerly a Singaporean. I've been here for the last 3 years in Melbourne itself. So with my wife and 2 lovely kids. So I started my real estate as well, also around the same time. So I've been doing this for about 3, going on 4 years now.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Can you also tell us roughly your background before you came over?
Yes. Actually, I was a civil servant before I moved into the real estate line. So I used to work, the typical civil servant hours, salary worker, 8 to 5:30 every Mondays to Fridays. I had the weekends off. So it was a good, stable life, but something wasn't quite right and I wasn't very happy with the life. So I made the jump and here I am.
I see. So what are some of the things that you wish you would have known when you first settled in Australia, like in Melbourne here?
I think there were quite a few things. First of all is I wish there was a comprehensive guide, especially to us from Singapore and Malaysia alike, places where we can find our local makan, our food, places where you will see more of like Singaporeans and Malaysians living, places that where there's relatively good schools around, and of course places where or organizations or groups that we can link up with to provide us with the local support when we're in Melbourne.
Right. And I understand that because I know you for quite a number of years already, and I also had the fortune of being served by you, helping us to sell the properties from one of our family members. So you were studying in Canada before, right?
That's right.
You lived there for a few years.
That's right.
Yeah. So how do you compare Australia and Canada?
Well, the first thing first is in Australia you don't have to shovel rain. So I lived in Canada for about 8 years, both in Vancouver and Montreal.
Wow.
So for 8 years I did my studies and I actually worked there for quite a few years actually before I decided to head back to Singapore first, then moving down south to join my sister in Melbourne.
I see.
So the weather is definitely different. I think the systems are different, but in the relative comparison, I would think that Australia, far from what people think, it's a down under. Sometimes people may be racist. Far from it, I've not experienced anything like that, and I think it's just as beautiful a country as Canada is, and just as welcoming and warm a country as Canada is.
I see. So yes, can you tell me like some of the challenges that you first faced when you came about here?
I think one of the biggest challenges we faced was when we first got our permanent residency and we landed here. There wasn't someone at the airport that would say, okay, this is a booklet, welcome to Australia, this is what you should do next. Everything was by word of mouth, and of course, luckily with technology, we had Facebook where we linked up with local support groups, Singaporeans or Malaysians that were already living here. I was lucky, I had the benefit of my sister who has been here for the last 15-20 years, and she told us, okay, this is what you have to do. But in hindsight, I think for a newer immigrant who is totally new here with no system of support, very little friends or none at all, it would be useful to have a support group or at least a system of support in the sense that they are able to know what to do next. For example, I didn't know where to apply for my Medicare card. I didn't know what Centrelink was. I didn't know that actually at first I didn't have to take a driving test, but I could just convert my license. Sorry, only for Singaporeans and a few certain select countries.
Yeah,
all these things I didn't know, and I actually had to learn.
I see. Right. So since you've been in the real estate business for a few years, can you give us some tips on like house buying or homes searching?
Yes. I think contrary to what a lot of people actually do in Singapore, Malaysia, which is the agent brings the buyers, i.e. ourselves, around to see the houses. In Australia, we have to remember the system is different. I.e. to say we have to go on the internet, you find a suburb that you want to, and you go for the inspections every Thursdays during after office hours or Saturdays. So Saturdays, the real estate culture in Australia is Saturdays are the days of inspection. That's where you will find your houses. But for new migrants coming to Melbourne, if you're not sure which suburb, do a bit of homework, do a bit of research, and don't be afraid to post questions on internet on those help forums and ask, well, guys and girls who have been here, know which suburb is good for you. And when you're looking at a suburb, a few criteria you must think about: how near are you to the train station, and how near are you to the city? What's the price, your budget for a house? And what kind of schools are there available in the neighborhood if you have kids? And what are the amenities that are available? All these are all things that we have to take note of, because you will be living there for quite a while. The suburb, you must have a good feel of it. And if you're not sure, come around for a recce trip to Melbourne. Even after you've gotten your permanent residency, come around for maybe 2 to 3 weeks of recce trip, what we usually call a recce trip. Drive around and identify a few suburbs that you think you're comfortable with, and take the plunge from there. Of course, not only just take a plunge, but of course you must walk the ground, get a feel. And once you're on the ground itself and you've decided, okay, this is my suburb, my suggestion is always to rent for a year, to get to know the suburb. And at the same time, you can still explore other suburbs and think if there are some better other suburbs that you can go to. You can rent for a year, then move into the decision of whether you want to buy a house. Just don't get to Melbourne and immediately straight you want to rush into buying a house. Not very advisable.
I see. It's very good advice. Now, how do we identify, or differentiate a good suburb from a bad suburb? Like, are there some things we can see, from the outside? Because you see, the thing is, coming from Malaysia or Singapore, we have a very different idea, and the scenery looks so different. The landscape, here is all green and white roads, but then so are those in the bad suburb.
Yes, that's true. There are two ways of doing it. One is usually I go up on real estate. In general terms, in Melbourne itself, most people would consider the eastern suburbs to be one of the better areas. But however, that comes at a price. It's a wee bit more expensive than the western suburbs.
Yes.
Northern suburbs are opening up as well, and that's a consideration that you can think about. How do you define a good suburb? There's a lot of forum online. Some would say there are pros and cons to living in the west and east, but I think this is up to individual choice. I can't say living in the east is better than living in the west, but I would say that a fact that most of the good schools tend to be found towards the east more than the west. Schools such as Presbyterian Ladies College or PLC, Baldwin High Secondary, Melbourne High, which is a competitive entry school, Glen Waverley Secondary College, schools like that, they tend to be towards the east side, because the eastern suburbs are the longer and more established ones. However, if your budget is, you're limited by a certain budget, you can explore further options as well. You can go further southeastern suburbs, which are opening up. Those are new neighborhoods. I think there are very young families there. Those are the considerations that are for you to think about going forward when you make a trip to Melbourne.
Wonderful. Edmund, last year Singapore Kampong has an event, and I think you were invited to give a speech, right, about some of the factors for home buyers, when to rent or when to buy. Yeah, can you share a bit of that with us, please?
Okay, Melbourne SG Kampong actually holds a biannual event. We hold it twice a year. An event where we call it the Kampong Migrant Info Night, if I still remember correctly. So what we do during then is we have a whole host of speakers that teach new migrants, and that's what we're trying to do, form that kind of support group for new migrants to be comfortable asking questions. How do I write my resume, Australian style? How to look for jobs? And in my portion of it, how does the real estate part come in? And I always advise new migrants, don't be hasty, don't rush into buying a house. Live in a suburb first. Identify those few suburbs, narrow it down, and maybe rent and maybe isolate one out of that, rent in that suburb for a year, then decide whether you really want to stay there or do you want to move somewhere else. I think a lot of it boils down to research, a bit of daring do that you'll have to, have the the courage to take the plunge.
Yep.
And third of all is, of course, if you have the support group to help you, it makes it also a lot more easier.
I see. Right. Thank you so much. So now you're working for this company here, LLC. Can you tell me, like, how is your company different from other companies?
Well, LLC Real Estate is we're a new company, but definitely veterans at this game. So we have been doing this for quite a while now. My two directors, they have been in Monash for the last combined experience will have been close to 10 years already. What is the difference in quality? I think, well, of course, we always aspire to provide that top-notch quality service to our clients. But apart from that, we also do have links to overseas buyers through our referral agents that are in China itself. Of course, we are also looking to expand to other suburbs and get listings there. In itself, we are an independent real estate agency, and of course, because of this, we are able to move a little faster than most others. And I think that's our key advantage, being there, not being part of a franchise, being there, being very personal, down to the ground with our vendors and with our buyers, getting the best price for them, and this is how we achieve the best sale price there is for our clients.
All right, thank you so much. And also, congratulations on becoming one of the very rare auctioneers, right, from ethnic background. That to me is really, really impressive. And also being a pioneer of LLC. Can you give me some tips of your success, your personal, achievement? How do you go about doing that?
I think it's been a while now since I've been doing real estate. And truth to be told, I never did real estate. I never did sales before. And it must come with attitude. The attitude that once you come to a new country, any migrant, you must come with the attitude that you must be willing to learn if you want to do well, if you want to survive. It is not something that is learned overnight, but you must have the patience and you must have the perseverance. Being an auctioneer was natural, especially for us from Malaysia and Singapore, because English is our first or second language in that sense. And being bilingual ourselves has made it much easier. Of course, there isn't very many Asian auctioneers, and my advantage, what I bring to my company and my clients, is that I'm a highly bilingual auctioneer. I can do it in both English and Chinese if required. It is not easy to break the glass ceiling. I've gone for my auctioneer's course before in REIV, Real Estate Institute of Victoria.
Right.
So I am certified. I am a certified auctioneer. Going through those training steps, learning how the Aussie culture of bidding, conducting auctions is a challenge, but I think it's rewarding in a sense that when you come to deal with auctions as an Asian auctioneer, it is a novelty for a lot of both buyers and clients, vendors alike, and they are surprised that actually is a Chinese auctioneer who speaks just as well as them, if not better, that's able to carry out the auction and bring the auction to greater heights of success.
Wonderful. The last question is, as a father of two young children, how do you compare raising a family here and in perhaps Singapore?
I think I have a lot more family time with my children here as compared to when I was in Singapore. I think if we talk about a salaried job, yes, I was contented in Singapore. I lived a very quite a satisfying life, a work life. But I never really got to see my kids, or my kid rather back then, very often. Here I'm getting a bit more work-life balance. In fact, a lot more work-life balance. I enjoy the open outdoors and I enjoy spending the time with my children. I think at the end of the day, a lot of us that migrated here, there are for many various reasons that we do. I think among them is we do it because of our families.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Edmund. All right, thanks so much.
No worries.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.